So talking a little bit more about fat. Fat is amazing. Fat is the secret to life. If only we could control the fat cell, oh my God, what we could do. But we're not there yet. So in the meantime, we have to sort of work with what we have. So what's interesting about fat is for muscles, the blood supply to muscles is very defined. It is an actual artery coming in, or a named vessel. It's one big tube flowing all the blood into the muscle, another tube flowing it out. With fat, however, it's this very fine little meshwork of tiny, 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 tiny vessels. So you don't have the same sort of thing where if you take out a clump of fat, you just have this one tube of blood going into it, and as long as you reconnect it to some kind of source, you get supply to the fat. That's the main idea behind why fat grafts don't really last well. So if you take a tiny bit of fat and you put it in somewhere, you're likely to have success. A larger amount, less success. And the reason why that happens is because when you take the fat out, it disconnects from all of its tiny little meshwork of blood supply. And now when you put it somewhere else, it has to find oxygen, find blood in that area. So it will get its oxygen from the live tissue that you put it next to, that's still connected to everything. So you put a small amount in, it's touching some live tissue, it has some way to get oxygen. You put a large amount in, and the part that's touching the live tissue is going to get oxygen. But if it's a big clump of fat you're putting in, everything in the middle is just touching more dead fat. So it's ultimately going to die, and it's ultimately going to get hard and lumpy. Some parts of it will absorb, some cannot. And in the end, you will lose a lot of the live fat that you wanted and get some other things like clumps, lumps, cysts, oil cysts, things like that. Specifically in the breast, this can be an issue because now you can end up not only losing some of the volume you transferred, but having other things like lumps and bumps that can cause concern, require imaging, require intervention, biopsy. It can be a whole process. The other reason why fat grafting can become dangerous is because if you put it in an area where there are large blood vessels and any of the fat gets into the vessels and travels to the heart or somewhere else, you can end up having huge problems that some cases are untreatable. So fat grafting has to be done carefully, and then in terms of having it live and survive, it's going to be more successful with small amounts than large amounts, which is why replacing large amounts of tissue or creating large amounts of tissue with fat grafting doesn't usually work very well.